Sorry, wait, no, it's just I've been told that there's a lot of people outside just waiting to come in, and people are trying to get in some more chairs. So if we leave it for another 5 minutes, just to give the people outside a chance to come in, is that okay? Before we start, yeah? Right. Right, hello. I'm Margaret, and I'm only up here because we put a post on a Facebook page recently to tell people about a council meeting that had been held or was about to be held in secret. They call it in committee, but it meant effectively that the members of the public didn't have access to the meeting. And we thought it was a bit odd because we were told it was going to discuss the funding mechanism for the brewery site. And because we've been kind of following that whole thing since the time on the bridge, we had an idea what it was about. Now, this would actually be the third time that the council had discussed this with the councillors. And I'm delighted to see David, a local councillor here, and you're very welcome, and thank you for coming along. And I think David will, thank you, he does deserve a round of applause. And now that we're at that point, there is something else that I want to say. Thank you very much, David, for coming along, and any other councillor that comes along as well. And I hope that this meeting is going to be a positive, democratic, participatory meeting. So any councillors that come along, we should treat them with the same respect that we would like them to treat us with, but that they very often don't. So we will treat them with respect here. Are we all agreed on that? Okay, that's our first democratic vote now, lads. We all agreed to that one. Anyway, let's go back to this, what this meeting is actually about. They had the meeting, and the meeting actually effectively discussed, and they were presented with almost precisely the same information that they were presented with at every other meeting that they had about this NTMA fund, all of which were held in public. So you'd have to wonder why it was so necessary to hold this one in camera when it had never been necessary to do so before. Now, I don't have an answer for that. All I can tell you is that today at the council meeting, Breda is another councillor. Thank you for joining us, Breda. Sit. And I see John McGuinness has braved the lion's den as well. Thank you for coming, John. So all I can tell you apropos that meeting being held in camera is what the current county manager, Colette Byrne, told us today, which was that she had decided it was going to be held in camera. She didn't explain why. I should have asked you at the beginning, can you turn off your phones? But anyway, she didn't explain why. She simply said she had decided, so it was held in camera. And basically, what they did in the council meeting today was they had been asked following the last council meeting, the one that was held in camera, it was proposed to them two things. One, that they would take a vote today on whether or not to accept to go into this joint venture partnership, like limited partnership that I'll explain to you in a minute. And the second part of it was that they were to vote for land disposal to this partnership. So a meeting was held today and disappeared entirely off of the agenda was the land disposal element. that was presented to them at the private meeting last week. Why that disappeared off the agenda, I have no idea. And the motion was rephrased today, and today they were simply asked to vote to enter the partnership, to give their agreement to enter the partnership. Now, with this meeting in mind tonight, which we called because so many people responded to the Facebook page. So many people responded in private messages, in emails, in texts, in phone calls, and you see an awful lot of people here tonight, and loads more messages from people who couldn't come. And that's why the meeting is called, because people wanted the meeting, because they wanted to know what was going on, and they wanted their councillors and their local representatives to explain to them, to talk to them, and to listen to them. So with that in mind, we asked the councillors to defer the vote today. We didn't ask them to defer it for 6 months or 6 years. We asked them to defer it until Friday, on the basis that it was hardly going to have an earth-shattering effect on anyone if it didn't happen until Friday. And our councillors, whom we just voted here to treat with ultimate respect tonight, treated us with their usual level of contempt and ignored us, and went ahead and voted anyway, and voted to accept and sign up to the agreement. So that's where we're at tonight. So that informs you on where the position is now. Our councillors today accepted and signed up to accept this agreement. Now, we don't have, I personally don't have, and most of the people that are interested and get involved in these things with us all the time, we don't have huge amounts of money. So we're not in a position to be able to print out reams of paper and to commission great documents the way the local authority and the executive are. So the best we can do in terms of the document that was circulated to the councillors today is that we will put it up in its entirety on the Save Kilkenny Facebook page so that you can all read it and access it for yourselves and make up your own minds and your own minds about it. So that's the best we can do on that. But insofar as I'm able, I will briefly try to explain it to ye. And I will try, as I always do, to do it in a fair and impartial way, to represent to ye what I have heard represented to me. And what I have heard represented to me essentially is that NTMA, which is the National Treasury Management Fund, and if you like a subsidiary of theirs, ISIF, not quite a subsidiary, but I haven't time to explain the minutiae of the difference, but more or less a subsidiary of theirs. They got loads of money, and they got loads of money to hand out for commercial investment. They got 7.5 billion money to hand out for commercial investment. And they're finding it extraordinarily difficult to get rid of it. And you'd need to look up the terms of reference yourself to maybe give yourself some idea as to why they're finding it hard to get rid of it. That wouldn't be for me to say. Although I think John will confirm that a TD of a Fine Gael TD raised not too long ago at the PAC that maybe his government, his then government, the Fine Gael Labour government, might go back and have a look at the terms of the ISA fund, seeing as they were all finding it so hard to get rid of the money at a time when we're desperate. But anyway, however desperate people are, they're not taking up the money in huge amounts, but we are in Kilkenny. In Kilkenny, we couldn't wait 3 days today to vote to accept it, because somehow or another it might have disappeared by Friday. Anyway, we voted to accept it. And it has one main proviso, and the main proviso is it's a commercial fund, so it expects a commercial return. Now, that's reasonable enough, you would say. if we're talking about a bank, if we're talking about any sort of organisation that lends money. You can even say it's reasonable enough for NTMA, although you might argue that it's not really, because it's our money anyway. But on another level, you can say it's reasonable that they're expecting a commercial return. But they seem to have a very odd way of looking at what is commercial. And commercial to them doesn't seem to be things like, for example, education. Like, for example, artistic endeavours, community businesses, co-ops, enterprises like that. That doesn't seem to fit the bill. And the reason we know that is because we didn't really know what was going on and nobody would tell us. So we sent off a whole load of FOIs and we eventually got a response we got 7 or 8 different responses. And I posted one of them on the SaveKilkenny Facebook page today. And if you didn't get a chance to look at it before you came in here tonight, have a look at it when you go home. And essentially what that says is, Joe Crockett, who's the ex-county manager of Kilkenny, who shortly after leaving Kilkenny went to work on a part-time basis, I understand, because I read that in the Sunday Times. He went to work with NTMA as some sort of consultant, I think. But he seems anyway to be directly in charge from the correspondence we have. He seems to be the go-to guy for Kilkenny County Council. He's looking after the setting up of our partnership. And in that letter that I posted this morning, he makes it very clear that they will go ahead with the agreement, but they make it very, very clear that this is a commercial agreement. And not alone do they make it clear that it's a commercial agreement, but they go so far in the second paragraph of that letter as to specify that there is no social element involved in this. They do that to make reference to the first paragraph when he talks about we're going to do education and research down there. Because in other correspondence we have under FOI, he stresses that the education being discussed down on the brewery site is not a social educational facility. It is not a university. It will not have students. It will not be on the CAO. Right? It's a connection with third level education and fourth level education and research. But again, it specifies that the research is of a private nature. It's a private commercial company. Now, I'm stressing this to ye, not because I'm necessarily saying that there is anything wrong with that approach to the site. And even if I think there is, that's only my view. I don't know what anybody else thinks. It might actually be a very good way to go forward on the site. I don't know. I'm stressing this to you because having asked hundreds of questions, time out of number, of every single councillor we have, of 3 CEOs now, and several other people from the planning department and all sorts of other things, every time I have asked, I have been led to believe, as many people in Kilkenny have, that there is a university going on the brewery site. And there isn't. At least not under ISAF or NTMA funding, there isn't. And seeing as Kilkenny County Council voted today to hand over all 6 plots, the only plots that are available on the site for building on, into this NTMA fund, it means that there can't be any kind of third level educational institute, university on it, because there simply is no room left.